Alright, so I'm taking it upon myself in this video to reupholster my seats. If I were to buy 2 brand new seats like this, it would probably cost me, with shipping and everything, roughly $800 to $1,000. So I thought, you know what? I love learning new things. Let's just think about kind of what goes into making a seat. You've got the vinyl, you've got high density foam on the inside, marine grade plywood, a mounting bracket of some sort, a bunch of staples, and some sewing thread. So when you break it down like that, it is a little bit less daunting. But the initial cost is gonna be pretty expensive for me doing it myself, just because of the sewing machine. This is the Singer Heavy Duty 4452 sewing machine, and this cost me about $330 Canadian. The rest of the material was roughly $200. So I've got some new vinyl, some gray and some white. I had some marine grade plywood left over from when I did my transom on my old boat. And I did buy a little bit of foam, but not a lot, because I'm gonna use the old stuff. I'm just gonna redo the damaged areas. And I had to buy some just miscellaneous stuff, like some new nuts and bolts, some foam adhesive so that I can stick the new foam onto the old foam, an electric bread cutter, but it's also apparently good for cutting foam. The big initial cost was the sewing machine, and so now I have a sewing machine. So when my other seats in my boat start to get all ripped up, I can repair those. I can repair my canvas top on my boat. I can even hem my own clothes if I want, if a dress shirt's not fitting properly. So that sewing machine will pay dividends in the future for sure. And I love learning new things. So this is just a fun project that I get to do in the comfort of my own home, and I get to learn a bunch about it. There's a bunch of really great YouTube tutorials on how to use the Singer sewing machine, so I'm gonna start with that. And then there's a bunch of YouTube videos from, I believe it's called Sailrite, and they basically walk you through fixing your seats. Now this video may make it look pretty simple what I'm doing, but just remember, between takes, I'm spending hours learning on YouTube. So this is gonna take a few days for me to figure out how it all goes together. Would you look at that? Not rocket science. All right, so here we go. Let's set up my living room to reupholster these seats. As you may be able to hear, I have a little bit of a lisp, and that is because I got my front tooth, my false front tooth out to get an actual implant. So I have no front tooth right now, and you will see later on in this video. I got the dental implant about halfway through making this, so it prolonged the process just a little bit. I was excited and optimistic. First thing I did was to start disassembling the seats, which turned out to be a bit of a pain because the bolts holding it together were all rusted out, so I ended up having to cut the bolts off. And now it's time to take the old vinyl off. And to do this with these particular seats, it involves a lot of taking out staples. And now for the fun part. Let's dissect these seats and see how they're put together. I started with the foundation of this seat, which is the marine grade plywood. Lots of seats are made up with different kinds of material, but my seat structure was wood. And so I just traced the old wood onto some new marine grade plywood. And I also drilled out the previous holes onto the new wood. And the same process for the armrests. Basically just reconstructing exactly how they were on the old seats. After the wood is all cut to size, now it's time to install the hardware. In this case, to hold everything together, it was a T-nut and a machined screw. which the T-nut goes on the inside. You basically just hammer this T-nut flush to the piece of wood on the inside, and then once everything's put back together, you're able just to put the machine screw through the bottom. And now you have your wood cut to size and all ready to go. Now let's head over to cut some foam. I did extremely rough cuts on all this stuff. I decided to replace the armrest foam completely and then just do some patch-up job for the seats and the seat backs. Looking back at this, I probably should have spent a little bit more time measuring exactly, but at the end of the day, the vinyl goes over top of this foam, and it compresses everything down, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And it was extremely satisfying to cut. So now I'm using the foam adhesive. You spray the foam adhesive on, wait until it's tacky, and then you can stick two pieces of foam together. Give it 30 seconds to a minute, and it'll actually hold there. It'll be stuck together. So now you're ready for the vinyl. You're gonna label each individual vinyl piece while it's all still together, just so you don't get confused of which part goes where and how it was initially all together. And what the pros do when I was watching those YouTube videos, they'll find the center line of whatever whole piece you're working on, and they'll actually cut it right down the middle. And the reason for that is so now you have two halves. One half is like a template that you can look at later to see how it was all put together. So one half is going to stay intact, and then the other half you're going to take apart. And the pieces on that half are the pieces you're going to get your measurements from for your new vinyl, to cut your new vinyl. And here's the slow, painful process of taking each stitch out individually to get your separate pieces of vinyl. Now it's time to cut your new vinyl. So you're gonna put the old vinyl down. I like to tape it so that when you're tracing it, it doesn't move around on you. So that's what I'm doing here. And with this one piece of old vinyl, I'm going to make the 4 other pieces for my 2 other seats. And the way I'll do that is I'll trace it the same way twice, and then I'll simply flip it over and trace it again. And that'll give me an exact mirror image for each seat. And then this is what they teach you to do in the YouTube video, but the pieces that you cut in half, so the first piece that I showed you there was just the side of the seat. That was a whole piece. Now this seat that I'm cutting right now, this was the middle part of the seat. And because I cut it in half, what I'm gonna do is just trace half of it, and then cut it. And then once I get to the half mark, I'm just gonna flip it over and continue to trace it so that it's a mirror image of itself, and I come out with a whole new piece. Yeah, I know. I know. Now you have to look at me without a front tooth. And just pretend you didn't see that. I know it's very distracting. If I stand far enough away, it doesn't look as silly. That's what I'll tell myself. At this part in the video is where it starts to slowly unravel, and I become more and more frustrated as the days go on. And the reason for that is that, well, you have all your pieces and you have all your stuff ready, and then you hit the sewing machine. First couple pieces you make are horrible. You have to redo them over and over and over again. And then you finally have a good piece and you're like, right on, let's try to fit this back onto the seat cushion and the wood. And the fit is just a little bit off. So you mess with it. You mess with it for 20 minutes and you're like, okay, I finally have it. And then you put it all back together again and you realize you're missing a piece, or you put it together the wrong way, or it's still a little bit off, so you have to remove the 20 staples you already put down. And now you've already stapled that area, so you move the fabric and now you can see the staple hole. This is where it started to become not fun at all. It became a huge headache. But as of right now, I have one seat done. Now, from there, it looks okay. Up close, you can already see, that piece doesn't really fit. And when you look up close, everything is a little bit off. But I have sat here driving myself nuts, thinking I wanted them perfect. And I've spent so many hours trying to get them perfect, and I don't know how. And so I finally said, you know what? This is good enough for me. At the beginning of the video, I didn't show you this. When I bought the boat, I had one full seat, which I showed you at the beginning of the video. But the second seat didn't have a seat back. It was completely broken off. The guy had lost it or threw it out, or I don't know what he did with it. But the boat just came with a full seat and a half seat. So that seat I showed you, the old seat in the beginning of the video, the back looked perfect. It's like, why would you take that apart? That's a perfect looking seat back. Well, I wanted to take it apart so that I could actually copy it. So this is the original, and then this is the one I just made up completely from scratch, from the measurements of this. This seat, I love the look of it. When I was shopping for seats, I couldn't find something that looked like this, and I really wanted something similar because it looks really good. It looks sharp and kind of classy and comfy all at the same time. But this seat, looking at it now from a different perspective, is a very difficult seat to reupholster. Look at how many different pieces there are. There's the front part, there's the two side parts, there's the middle part, there's a part that goes all the way around the bottom. This is one continuous part. And all of these parts have different curves and bends in them. None of them are straight. Everything has an angle to it, which is very difficult for sewing, especially when it's your first time. And I mean, look at how many different pieces of foam there are to fit correctly. You've got 4 pieces just for the seat back alone. So you have to make sure that everything fits perfectly with these 4 different pieces. And these pieces aren't like a simple square angle. They've got a million different angles on them. So to match the old fabric and then to cut the new fabric and to cut the foam and to have it all match perfectly, very difficult. If I were to do this again, I would have started from a blank canvas. I would have gotten the marine grade plywood, I would have cut that, and then I think I would have just made the seat construction very simple. I think I would just have one size foam in the middle, like this size, and then on the outside I would just have a square. And I could basically just sew the inside and then just have one piece of vinyl that drapes around the outside, and then maybe sew some of these it's called piping, these seam lines on, just to give it some look. So take from that information whatever you want. This is a hard seat to do, but we're almost done. All right, let's head over to the sewing machine. So we're sewing together the last cover here, and in my case, you're gonna hope for the best. Halfway through, you may have to take apart all of your work and start again because things just aren't lining up properly, but that's just part of being a newbie. Done. And then you put your seats back together. You'll see that I put a little plastic wrap on the seat, and that's for if moisture does get in behind the vinyl. It won't soak completely into the foam, it'll kind of run off. This seat back just was not fitting properly. I'm not sure, I must have cut some of the pieces a little bit too small, but I actually had to shave the foam down a bit so that everything would fit. And it still just didn't fit right. This is a pain in the butt. So this goes on the back, And then up here, so you put staples all the way along to hold your fabric nice and snug, kind of, and it covers these staples up, right? And then for this seam, because you can't sew it, it's already back together, you put, I'm not sure exactly what this is called, but you put that on like that. And then with this, if you look closely, there's two sides. So that side's the back, this is the front. And when you're stapling it, you just open it up a little bit and you put your staple right through there, and then it just closes naturally on its own and hides the staple completely. So that's how you finish the seat when it's the back of the seat and you can't put staples underneath where nobody will see them. Oh, look at that. I already stapled that on incorrectly. I covered these holes. All right, take it all apart. All right, so now we got the bottom and the seat back, and we're just going to screw them together with the mounting brackets here, and then we're also going to put the armrests on. It always looks a little bit better when it's all together. All the little flaws kind of hide themselves. Well guys, I did it. I reupholstered my boat seats. Would I do it again? No. Like I said before, I would start from scratch and completely change the design to a much more simple design and then reupholster them that way, or make them that way. But I started the project, I got frustrated, I wanted to quit. I didn't think they looked good at all. Looking at them now, they look just fine. And I'm quite proud that for my first reupholster job that I did such a complex seat like these boat seats. In the next video, I will probably have my tooth back and these seats will be in my boat. Keep living that dream. See you next time. Bye-bye.